Okay, so for now, let's go ahead. We're going to architect this a little bit. Keynote. So let's think about the process. So a user has logged in. What should that screen look like? Let's go back here. So I'm a normal user. I've logged into the system. I need to be able to choose probably the type of service. But for right now, let's just assume everything's snow removal, right? Because we're not even going to do full information for that. We want to kind of have version 0.01 of request service, generic service. Make sense? All right, so we're logged in. Maybe we say something up top like welcome so-and-so. Whatever the username is. All right, so that'll be up top. And then maybe we also have a log out button. Right now we're going to focus on having this thing basically look like crap but functional. Okay, and then we're going to look at some bootstrap stuff if possible. We want to do a very simplified thing. So we want to create a scenario where we can enter in some piece of information. So maybe we are saying we have a, initially we're just going to maybe say we want service and here's our username. And we're just going to do a request for service. And that's going to update something on the database. All right, so now we have service requests. Okay, so let's start with that. We'll do something relatively simple. So let's bounce back here. And actually, an interesting thing we can do. Have any of you ever worked with Bootstrap? All right, so Bootstrap's a pretty decent way of making your code look better than it should. So I'm going to go to, we have examples in here, set her to getting started. Examples. So maybe something like this is our initial site, although ours will be fairly simple, but at least we can say like the person's name right here and then maybe have the log out button over here or something like that. So I'm going to do view page source here. And this should have they're doing it all off of that. Well, we'll come back to this at the end because it is a decent way if you can actually see it here. You know, if you take a site like this, you know, this is a pretty interesting looking site that isn't that hard to put together, and you could just steal their stuff and then modify it as you need it. But it does look like they said on their main page here. Something about Bootstrap 4 is coming soon. When? Didn't I see something pop up when we first came to the site? Yeah, but it doesn't say when. I thought I saw something that said that it's coming out like super soon, like 4 days or something. All right, well, let's just make it look crappy first, and then we'll swing back around to that. All right, so let's get our username up top after we're logged in. We're only focusing on the user screen right now, and then we'll have our logout button, which we sort of kind of already have. And so let's just have that show up first. Here, so this is our home. And we moved our controller up top here, although it didn't seem to make a difference. So we should be able to actually put it back down after the div. All right, so we'll say welcome. Now inside here, we want to go ahead and get our username, right? And is it called username or is it called email? Let's go back here. Yeah, we're still consoling out the auth data. So let's just go to index real quick. And let's log in. So this is user1 at user.com, abc123. All right. Let's expand that. Auth. So it looks like it's .password.email. Seems to be that's the best we have for a username right now. Because here's the object. And then built into that we have an auth object as well as a password object. And inside the password object we have the email. So I think that's our best way of getting good question. Let's find out. Boom. See, awesome. It's hand designed. All right. So we know what it looks like. So now we'll just say, so this whole thing here is our auth data. So we're going to say auth data dot password dot email should give us our actual email address, right? So let's go ahead and grab access to that, and we'll put it in our scope. That way we can put it up here. So after we grab our auth data, we can go ahead and put stuff down here. We'll put it after this line. So anything that's happening down here means we're supposed to be here and we're logged in. So we'll say scope dot email. Let's call it user email is equal to auth data dot password dot email. And then up here, we should be able to bind our user email. Like that. So let's Let's go back here. We'll go ahead and log in. Oh, are we currently not redirecting them? I think we turned that off, didn't we? Yeah. Just print out our error there in the event. Otherwise, we'll take them to home.html, which effectively routes them to all of our different places. Refresh this. user1@user.com. abc123. Welcome, user1@user.com. And then we could log out and we're right back to where we started. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to have a couple of, well, we'll start off with one form that just is request service. Fair enough? All right, and what request service should do is it should show us, when we submit it, it should put into our database a new service request. And right now a service request is just going to be associated with a unique user ID. So we'll have a unique user ID, and then we'll throw just a word in there for the service to be requested. Right now we'll just put in snow or grass or something like that. All right, so let's go ahead and build our form for that. And I'm gonna steal, well, it's simple enough form, so let's just write it. So we're gonna steal this form from over here. Oh, there's where that X came from. At some point in time we put that in there. I'm going to steal this div, and we'll go into our home. Yeah, I'm going to actually do it as a separate div just so we can explore this a little bit. So we're going to say this entire thing in here, everything inside the body is part of our home app. This top thing here we're going to call header underscore or header dash controller. So we're going to try to compartmentalize stuff a little bit here. All right, so this is our controller for our header. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a separate controller for our form. Not because we need to, just because we want to experiment with that. All right, understanding the differences there. So here's our form. We're going to take out this is service form controller. Steal that there. Eventually we're going to move these into other files so we can kind of see where our different code might be for different parts of our screen. So we'll experiment with that now. So this is our service form controller. So this guy is specifically associated with this div that has our form in it. And this div is just going to take in a service name. No password. And we'll just have something in here called submit. So service name, submit. We need to go ahead and add that submit function here. So we're going to say scope dot submit is equal to, actually it's just scope dot submit like this, right? Yeah, is equal to function. All right, so this is going to be our submit function, and this is where we can start grabbing the various things from in there. We're going to go ahead and get our username, or our service name. So if you see in the login function here, we were able to get the username from our scope. So this is two-way binding, so the username and password were set out here. We have access to them in here. Similarly, when we set something in our scope in here, we have access to it out here. So we're going to go ahead and we want to save the new service request to Firebase. Okay, so we're going to write something to Firebase specifically for this a new endpoint. So we need to go into Firebase, and here's our data. So we're going to add service requests. Service dash, is it underscore maybe? Requests, that look decent. Oh, we didn't like that. Well, this is where we're going to have our user ID mapped to request name, probably.
So the user ID and underneath that's going to have a request name.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be similar to what we did for role here.
Okay, so just put like a random number in there right now.
Just to get it built.
Yeah, just to build it, to see what we want it to look like.
No.
It's going to have to put underneath that, right?
No. Yeah, so under our service requests, we have requests that are name value pairs, where the name is the user ID of the person making the request, the value is the name of the request, right? Let's see, we probably could, because really a request could be accepted. Yeah, we can go a little bit better with this, I think. So let's do service requests. And then within this, we're going to have because really this is a request object. So we want a request object to have several pieces of information. So it's going to be who requested it, who accepted it, and whether or not it's complete. It's probably three pieces of information currently. All right, so every single request is going to have a unique name or unique ID. So if we don't put anything in here, it'll create a unique thing, right?
No. So what we have to do then with Firebase, what was that one, the creating story data that did the random one? Push. Yeah, like made basically a hash. Yeah. Yeah, push.
Okay.
Just push and then all the data into that one. So under service request, we push it so that it come up with a unique service request ID.
That'll be this guy.
And then we'll have.
And then underneath that will be our name value pairs, where it's the who will be the user ID, the provider initially will be none, and then completed will be no, or something like that. Okay. So we're not going to be able to build it manually in here. We're going to have to just do it from our push. All right. So really, we're hitting an X on that for right now. We'll start building it from writing stuff out here. So let's save data. All right. Okay, so this is the push that generates the unique ID for us. So because we want each request to have a unique ID associated with it. Okay. So we can steal most of what we have. Here's our push example. Set, that's push. And we just give it the full. Okay, shouldn't be any big deal then. So we're going to go ahead and create our own ref here, because this is a local variable to this new controller. And this is going to be endpoint service underscore requests. Say ref.push. And we put in the JSON in here, right? So here's our JSON, and we're going to say, we're going to let it come up with a unique ID for it. And we want to put in a, let's see, so UID, we need to do the quotes around it. Nope. So we're going to say UID, and this is going to be our, well, this would have probably been beneficial to have it all in the same scope, but in fact, it's, yeah, because we've lost our auth data here. So let's put it inside of our same scope. We'll do this secondary scope thing later on when it makes sense. I think so. I think each one's going to get their own scope because we've broken into 2 controllers. So I'm going to steal that. We'll dump this controller. It was a great idea while it lasted. All right. So now when we're down here, we should be able to create our submit function. So right now, the body tag is our app and then defines the controller. So everything within the body comes underneath that one controller. So we don't need to worry about this div living and dying. Remember earlier tonight, we had something accidentally outside of the div and it didn't get processed. Now we're saying anything that's inside the body will be controlled by this controller, and we'll have an app name this home. So here's our app home. Here's our one controller. We've already authenticated, which is the important part here. So when we hit submit, we're going to go ahead and call this function. We're going to need to do our child off of this. So we're going to say ref.child service requests dot push, and we're going to push a couple of things. So let's go ahead and push the UID. So this is going to be auth data .uid. That's going to be the UID. So that's who's requesting it. Actually, let's call this requester ID is going to be that. Is it OR or ER? Request. Yeah, user probably makes sense. Then I don't have to spell requester. Good call. All right. So user auth-data.uid. Provider, initially, can we give it like good question. Can we do a null? Seems like he's okay with it. Let's find out. And then we're maybe do a completed. And have this guy be false initially. So 3 pieces of information. Who requested it? The provider that accepts it, which initially should be null. And then whether or not it's completed. By default, it's nothing, right? So this should push it. And do we need to do anything special after that? Or should we just see it in there? Looks like we should just see it in there. Later on, we'll probably want to do timestamps and stuff, but this will be good enough for right now. All right, so this is what happens if we hit our submit button. We call this, and up here is where our actual submit is. So service form controller, service name, we read in the name, here's our service name. Oh, we never actually give it a name. See, good thing we double checked that. So we have the user, we have the provider, we have completed. Let's go ahead and give it its name. And this guy is going to be called scope.serviceName. That. Okay. And then we should be able to do scope.serviceName is equal to empty string. And that should empty it out so we don't see service name in there anymore. Or we don't see the whatever we typed in as the name. Let's give that guy the old college try. Huh? It didn't? Oh. I haven't tried it yet. That's bad? I probably want to, I'm going to change that, our login button before we do anything else. All right, so let's go try this again. Welcome, user email. So that should be in home controller. Controller. Invalid left-hand side and assignment. Does it not like us having? But I have a dash. Oh, this is probably also problematic. We still have that second controller in there. All right. That guy seems like he's okay. So we're going to say snow removal. Create. Whoa. All right, let's see. Failed. First argument contains not a number in property service requests dot name. Try that again.
We should probably put the service type in there.
What?
Because right now we're, like it says snow removal and we hit create, and it creates it, but it doesn't say what it is. It's like what we typed in did absolutely nothing for us.
You sure?
Yes. Could you
There's our service request. The name of it is snow removal. Completed is false, and this is who requested it. Oh, who's that? Oh, that's a unique thing.
Yeah.
Don't we have a provider? Who is that? What happened to our provider?
You set him to null, so I probably deleted him.
Oh.
Set it to the string null.
N/A. Fancy. All right, so we're going to get rid of this guy because he's dead to us. Snow removal. Create. Nailed it. Boom. Okay. So this is our, I guess this is our request form. Now what we want to have is on this user screen, we want to have pending requests. So we should show all the requests that we have, that we've made, where there's not currently a, actually we should have probably two different lists. One where there isn't a provider assigned. Okay, so and then another one where it's like it hasn't been completed yet. Let's just deal with the provider assigned part of this for right now. All right, so we want to show a list of all of our service requests associated with us. So where the user is equal to our user ID, and provider is N/A. All right. So let's do, so we'll do this inside of another div. This is the cool kids way of writing bad HTML. Whenever you need to have something segmented, throw it in a div. That way later on when you want to actually organize it, you can grab things one div at a time and put it where you need to put it. All right, so I'm only halfway kidding. That's actually, as you're seeing here, it's hard enough to write the code when you're working with HTML, so you might as well not focus on the design and the code at the same time. Eventually, when we start thinking about our interface, what we're going to want to do is take this code, move it into its own JavaScript file, and then have this document just look like HTML. So right now, we don't need to separate our interface from our code because we really have no interface. This is as bare bones of a bad interface as it gets. All right, but let's make it work first, and then we'll go back. Okay. So now we want to go ahead and request some information. So we're going to retrieve some data. All right, and this is where the cool stuff should come in, right? This is where we start taking advantage of the asynchronous nature of Firebase. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get a database reference to our posts. And I'm going to actually call this guy Let's start off by creating this. So this is called service_requests. All right, so let's say get the data for our pending service requests. So we're going to say var service requests is equal to well, let's just leave it like this. Res.child service underscore requests. So that'll give us a variable to easily grab our service request, right? And is it called service underscore requests out here? Service underscore requests. It is. What do you mean it's not res? Ref. Ref, I was testing you. You failed. Especially you, Yanter. Very low expectation. Okay. So we didn't need to put this in a variable, but we went ahead and did it anyway. So now whenever we need to get service request stuff, we have a handle for grabbing service request stuff. We don't have to say ref dot child service request dot whatever. Who? Oh yeah. That's right. We can. Boom. Let's go ahead and see you pass that test. So let's test that and make sure it's not still broken. Let's see if you broke it. All right, so lawn care, create. Do we have a lawn care? We do. All right, so seemingly we're able to create those things, and our little specialty handle for not having to say all that crap seems to be working. Probably should have made this a shorter variable name, but we didn't. Okay, so now that we have that, these guys are only functions that get called upon request, right? But now as part of our page, we want to go ahead and have all of our information for our that we want to display on our screen, probably in an unordered list or something like that. We maybe eventually will do it in a table, but for right now, let's just prove we can get at our stuff. So we're going to go ahead and do our request. So I'll steal that code for right now. And this is service requests on value. And I guess for right now, we'll just do it out to the console. All right, so this should show us the list with two things in it right now, just to prove that'll be out at the console. And I'm going to go ahead and comment out the auth data to our console for the moment. Okay, so we're still alive. Here's us getting our data. So we're going to try to get a snapshot of our service requests, and we'll just spit it out to the console. Let's see what that guy looks like. Refresh that. Here it is. We should have, what, two things in there? And we do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get those inserted into our, maybe have like a pending request thing right here, something like that. So up top, in our next div, we're going to do an H3, because we're really going for this is human-computer interaction-based design. And this is a less important section, so we're doing it with an H3 tag instead of an H1 tag. That means the text is smaller. All right, so pending requests. And this guy, we're going to use our unordered loop dealy flippy, but let's just prove that we can get this stuff out here first. Okay, so this guy was called, where's the on? Here's our snapshot. So we're going to go ahead and we have our val. We're going to say scope dot data Actually, let's do, yeah, that should work. Service request data is equal to snapshot.val. All right, so we have that, and then we need to do our loopy dealy where we can have that angular loop thing and go through all of our pieces of information, or for each. Angular for each. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for the HTML directive. Yeah, but there's a thing where you can go through and yeah, that guy. Yeah, right.
Or whatever object, like key value pair in
Right.
whatever your object is.
Here's ng repeat. All right, so we're going to do this inside of another div. I'm just going to steal this. So here's our pending requests. And let's just paste that in there for right now. And this guy currently looks like, so for each element in our data, we're going to have something like this. So it's an object. Oh, well then we should be able to, yeah, this should be easy. So for obj in, and we called that guy service request data.
I think that's not going to work because that's going to think it's a JSON array.
It is a JSON array.
Is it?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, these guys are, so this is data. And inside of that we have 3 objects, or 2 objects, I guess. Might have 3 now, 2. And then for each of those objects we can say obj.name.
Okay, try it.
You have low confidence?
Yeah, because I ran into
I have low confidence because I just wrote it and it doesn't work. What's your low confidence based on? Did you just test it?
No, I didn't test it now.
Okay. So I'm going to do unordered list. List item obj dot name slash list item. I'm not sure if that's a good idea to have your unordered list outside of the div, but whatever. You don't want to keep restarting an unordered list in there. Well, you'd be starting a brand new unordered list each time through, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but does that matter?
Well, I think it might, a little bit, from an HTML perspective. Let's just see what it looks like. I mean, if it works, the data will be there. It just will look like some sort of apocalyptic nightmare. there a way to clear this? There we go. Okay, so we got it back, so that stuff's not popping in there. I guess for right now, oh, I bet you that was the problem. I just wrote that code. I think it's going to be like that. I think you're better than me. That's what happens when you drink water with bubbles in it. Service request data. Just as a, I'm going to try to do something here. This could be a problem like we had earlier, where something that we think is there is actually not in scope because we're setting it inside. So there's our service request data. So we're just going to try to spit it out here first. In fact, let's take out this ng repeat thing for a moment. Okay, so it's perfectly happy giving it to us there, but out here gives us nothing, and I bet we can prove this by doing this. Scope dot service request data is equal to woot. So even though we're trying to set it again down here, where are we setting it? We're setting it service request data equal to snapshot val right in here. I think that that's never actually. Yeah, and we're seeing it print. We're printing it right here. Well, the point is we're seeing it here, then we're setting this value here, and we don't have access to that value. So I think if we run this right now, because I preheated that value to woot, it's going to say woot up there, and it's not going to change. So we need to figure out how do we get that value out of.
Why would it have worked on the last assignment for us? It's basically the same thing.
Well, let's see. So we got our woot there. So this guy he's cool with. But I think it's because we need to have the follow-up functions, right? So even though we're getting our console here, it hasn't updated our view. Don't we have to have another on? Kind of remember that from.
Okay, so I don't know why, but on scope, for scope, you have to set it equal to a Firebase array.
A Firebase array?
Yes.
Oh, because that's what's coming out of.
Coming out of the.
So what needs to be a Firebase array?
The value.
I think the dot var gives us a string, what is the value under the link or the location point.
Well, okay, but
The Firebase array depicts the JSON documents to the.
well, but there's a deeper problem here, and that's this. If I come here and I say, let's just put back what I had here, and then I change this to blah in here. Excuse me. Do we get the blah? I don't think we get the blah. It's woot. It gets set to blah inside here when we originally get our data. We know we're getting our data because it's spitting out. but are we able to change the scope variable? That should have nothing to do with Firebase stuff. This is just setting it equal to a string. Yeah, so there's our woot.
Something in the service thing.
Yeah, so at that point it changed. So does that mean that if I go back here, and we set it equal to val there, and we do this again, we type something in here. Okay, so there's our answers for right now. So let's see if we can do our order thing. Oh, I don't think we need to do this inside of a div. I don't think any of you told me we needed to do it inside of a div. That's what I copied. Should be able to do this inside of an unordered list, right? This is obj in probably should have held on to those.
You type the line scope.apply with $sign in front of apply, it loads it automatically.
If I do what?
When you
Right here?
So right below where you set what like the requests, and it's supposed to grab it up top. So right underneath where you grab snapshot.
Down below?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you set
Here it is, right here.
search request data right underneath there. Type in scope. Well, you need the $sign. Scope, and then dot, and then another $sign. Apply. It's a function, so I have the parentheses, semicolon.
That?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and what's it going to do?
It basically tells it, like, once it grabs that data, to like refresh the view up top now.
Oh. I get what you're saying. This doesn't do our list thing. This just makes it so we don't have to type in the box.
Correct.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, so I was in the middle of doing our unordered list. This solves our problem where changes don't happen unless we
Correct.
click. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
This is letting it know that there's new data, refresh it automatically. Don't make the guy type in a box. Okay. So object in this guy. Have list item. And for each of these, it'll be obj dot. Is it obj dot name should be good enough. That should be the snow removal and lawn care, whatever. So pending requests, here's an unordered list. It's going to be repeat object and service request data. Then go through and show us all of our names. Snow removal, lawn care. We got a nice crash or something down here, but all the awesomeness worked fine with it. ng repeat dupes. Who? I mean, why do I have it in a form? I don't. The form ends here. This is after the form.
You're supposed to put the ng repeat in the list item.
That can't be right.
Yep.
Oh, I guess that sort of does make sense. because this part's not the one that's repeating. This is a one-time thing, this is a one-time thing, this thing repeats once for every object in that. Yeah, that makes pretty good sense. Looks like, so this is that guy. Oh, I think it's this. It's dying on this last one. This proto thing that doesn't have names.
Yeah, it's because it's a Firebase array.
Okay, so this is the reason why we need to treat it as a Firebase array. Okay, so how do I treat it as a Firebase array? Firebase arrays effectively know to ignore this last object, is what you're saying.
I believe so.
Okay.
Wait, mine didn't get there.
Because that seems to be the problem. This is fine because this object has a name. This is fine because this object has a name. This is less than fine because this object.
Push enter or refresh the page one more time.
Well, let's start off. How do we do the Firebase array?
It has to do with intent to control what the function.
Use dollar as a function.
Then you just click on the
Synchronized arrays. Firebase array of book ref. So there's messages. Oh, this is actually seems kind of handy. You don't even have to do a query.
what I mean, we're probably gonna want to query though, aren't we?
And those database queries as well. Okay, well, at the very least, this should fix the starting problem. Let's just confirm that's the case. So I should be able to dump that. I assume Firebase array comes with Firebase.
You have to add it into the function down below it where it says scope.
Why? So here's the snapshot. It seems like we should just be able to wrap that guy in a Firebase array.
Go back to the documentation.
Oh, hold on, let me try this real quick. Okay, so that's the
Next to scope right there.
Otherwise, there is dollar as array with the snapshot dollar as array.
okay, so we need to make it so inject the Firebase array into our controller. Not a string or URL. must pass a valid Firebase reference to Firebase array. So it seems to me, based on that, the way to do this is we don't grab the information this way. Instead, we do this. So you want to do snapshot dot like that as a function, or like that, or no function?
Like that. You don't need to type that into Firebase. You can remove the front back Firebase.
Oh, okay, I get it. It's going to automatically do it as a Firebase array. Right, because the idea here is that for provided saw Firebase, we wouldn't do this. Then we lose the asynchronous call potentially. But we could try this.
The Firebase array, when I did it on my,
Snapshot as array is not a function.
Maybe on dot value dot value.
Oh, hold on. Before we just randomly try crap. Firebase.
the Firebase array.
Sync is object. Okay. So you want to do .val.as array like that. Doesn't like that. Yeah, snapshot is it's not an array, the data coming in. We might be able to get individual elements of that as an array. But I think, let's try it the first way. So we have our service requests. So now we should be able to say this equals Firebase array passing its service requests like that. And we should be able to get rid of that. So now you're using Firebase array, taking in a Firebase reference, it's going to return that data. We should then be looping on that data. All right, with no errors. So there's that guy. But now, let's try something here. Another snow removal. Oh, so he automatically refreshes on his own. We don't even need to do those callbacks. It's pretty handy.
That's what I used for the last assignment.
It didn't seem like you knew how to use it.
Well, I was looking through it and trying to explain it, but I figured it out. In other words,
So you copied and pasted a lot of stuff and never asked questions of why does it work?
no, I knew that it was up there.
Did you have bubbles in the water?
No, I didn't.
Because this is pretty important stuff. All right. So now we have our pending requests showing up there. Now we want to only have requests showing up here where the where there isn't a provider. There's no provider yet. So let's go here. pending requests, no provider yet, something like that. All right, so right now we have all those guys. We need to now specify that we only want ones where the provider is equal to NA. And what I'm going to do for testing this, we're going to go in here, and we're just going to say Bill. Okay, so one of those providers is now a guy named Bill. It's ultimately going to be a provider ID, but for right now, it's just a dude named Bill. Okay, let's refresh this. It should still show all three. Good. So we would like this to only show two of them now. Only the ones that have the provider ID set to null, or not set to NA. So we should be able to. The question is, can we ask Firebase to do this, or do we do this as part of our loop? Do we ask the question with Angular, if the value is NA, do something? So conditional Angular. Yeah, so it looks like for these queries, we're able to order by something, but we're not able to say only give me ones where a certain thing matches, can we?
Could we look at it being the API reference, wouldn't it? Pages above that.
Order start at. All right, you may have redeemed yourself. So it looks like, well, what does equal to? Takes a value and a key. So we would say equal to n/a on provider. I'm guessing this is optional for the key. That's usually what the square brackets means. All right, so let's try that. They said we can use it with a query, or at the fire array thingy. Okay, so it looks like we can just do this. So service request dot equal to, was it a capitalize NA? Lowercase NA? n/a on provider. That closes that, that closes that. Okay, so we're saying, here's the reference, only give me the things that are equal to NA for the provider. Part row. All right, let's. Let's say order by provider equal to so it does look like you need to do an order by. So we would do order by provider dot equal to NA. Okay, that's just order by child. Order by child. Okay. Well, I mean, it showed us stuff, but it yelled about indexing up here for these guys. But it didn't remove the one thing.
Would we want it to be 9 if we were filtering it out, basically?
Well, right, so I'm saying just give me the ones that are equal to that.
Oh, you said the ones that are equal to NA, so it should filter out down the one that says bill is what you're thinking, right?
Correct, should filter bill out. So that we should have two things here, not three, is the idea here. This was that third binding thing with the data that I was talking about earlier that I couldn't come up with. This is where you bind stuff, bind a variable specifically to your database. So that's why Firebase calls it three-way binding. Because now if you make a change to a text box, for example, rather than you actually having to do the whole query update save, you can actually bind the value of that text box to something in the database. Whenever you change that, it changes in the database. Okay. Firebase ref.child jobs order by child UID equal to user ID. So this says service requests, order by child provider. Yeah, I do. It's down here. It's just wrapped. The screen width. then do we need to do it on our own? Seems unfortunate, but huh? What do you mean it works on this one?
Like mine, as I add a provider to it, it takes it away from the list.
Well, right here I have a provider, right? Oh, hold on, I never pressed enter on it. But I still can't, it's still not working. Click. Oh, data. Update.
Now just go to your home.
Well, I shouldn't even have to hit refresh. It should just be there. Yeah. Nailed it. Well, security and performance. Okay, so now we have those guys. Pending requests, no provider yet. Then we should have, let's see, incomplete jobs.
Should we make that so that it's to that certain provider then?
What?
Should we list that by the provider then? And not like incomplete jobs for that provider basically?
Oh, you mean we have separate things based on the provider. I get what you're saying.
Because incomplete jobs should only be viewed by that provider and not other providers.
Well, no. So this is for me. So if I'm the user,
Oh, okay,
I'm looking at this and
so it'll show the provider's name.
sure. So I should be able to see the jobs that have been accepted and who's accepted them, for example, but they haven't been completed yet. So that's going to be so let's go here. So this is var incomplete jobs is equal to just steal all this for right now. Ooh, can we say not equal to NA?
Yeah, you can't do not equal to.
Mm-hmm. Before, when we put in a null that there wasn't a provider, well, that's still not going to do what we're trying to do. Well, I'm thinking we might have to do the if. Questions filter. Yeah, this thing we can build our own filter in.
Well, for the first one, don't we want the request specifically for the user ID too? We have to put that in there as well.
Oh, you're right. You're right. We need to order by.
User ID.
Oh, can we only order once?
I don't know. What if we just ordered by user ID? Could you do that? And then it,
Well, if we do that and then we say equal to,
I don't know.
the question is, can we do 2 order buys?
Well, what if we just created a temporary variable that said,
Well, this might fix the issue anyways. Let's see, filter. Let me try this here. So based on what you're saying, we're going to actually order by UID. Actually, it's called user, right? Where that's equal to auth data dot UID. Oh, I wanted to do that up here too. Auth data dot UID. So I'm actually going to take this out for right now. Save that. This should bring back all 3 now. Okay, because all of them are created with the same user ID, so that's good. So now I'm going to try to build our own filter in. This might be easier anyways. Okay, almost. Okay, that's what I want to say. Thought that was going to work. Filter colon not filter colon not provider filter by signal. Okay, well, so this should work then. We should be able to filter on provider NA. So this should just show one. It should filter out everything that has NA in it for provider, leaving us with just one thing. Lawn care, another snow removal. So does it actually go the other direction? Yeah, here's lawn care, and here's another snow removal. That's interesting. So it looks like though when you do filter on an NG, this is showing you you're keeping the ones that have NA, which means that if we build a second div here, let's call this guy incomplete jobs. And this should be the alternate of that, not providers NA. That should just show one. First one's right. Second one's less right. Is it just not NA like that? Nope, not that.
It's not less.
That. Nope. All right, that did it. But are we confident it did it right? This is a weird filter. So this filters on NA. This filters on not NA. But now I should be able to, yeah. Yeah, it's just string syntax, like, because we want to read this as the string n/a. But in order to say not this string, you have to put the not inside the double quotes. We're still cooking. I must have just clicked on something funny. So then we should be able to do that should give me the provider. So there's the provider bill. Okay. And then we should be able to see completed jobs by filtering on completed. We're showing only the ones where it's true. Should be pretty easy, I would think. Completed jobs, filter on completed. So I'm guessing, well, I want to not put it inside of, I think that's a Boolean literal. So keep only the ones where it's true. So initially it should have nothing. And then we'll move the bill one over to, all right. So now let's go and bill is now true, so that guy should jump columns or jump whatever. Oh. Because now it's showing it as incomplete and completed. Incomplete means that it,
Can we also filter on,
you want to filter on both.
at the same time? 'Cause then it should update, right?
Yeah. So this guy up here, so we want to filter where provider, so we want to say completed is false. And provider is at A. This guy's just showing me completed is true. Yeah, there we go.
We'll do it automatically though if you change it.
I think so.
You change bill.
Yeah, so let's go back here and let's change completed back to false. Now that moved. Let's change this guy is, that's just a permanent thing now. Provider Chuck. Completed is true. Now we should have one in each column. Or one in each row, whatever. Starting to get pretty slick, right? So it seems like the best way to do it for us is going to be to use a Firebase array to grab the data, then use Angular's filters ourselves, rather than play around with Firebase's query, which it seems like Firebase's ability to query is somewhat weak, but maybe that's okay. You know, it's because this is actually pretty powerful, it seems like. So maybe that's kind of the thing, is just give me all the JSON and I'll filter from there. Okay, so questions by the stuff we did today. We accomplished quite a bit. Oh, just for starters, just so I don't forget, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to push this up to GitHub. So you guys have access to this. For your homework assignment, we're going to build and I want you to do this in the context of your project idea. So each of you has been thinking about a project idea, right? So rather than yours being snow removal or something like that, you know, I want you to come up with a project that's kind of in the spirit of what we're doing here. So bring yours up to speed with this, but what we're going to do for the homework assignment is we're going to do this on the provider's side of things. The provider should see a list of pending requests, and they should be able to accept a request, which would then assign them, in my app here, which would assign that provider's user ID to the provider name, the provider for that guy. And then a provider should also then be able to complete a job. Okay, so a provider should see two things similar to what we see here. They should see a list for pending jobs, a list for selected jobs, and then a list for completed jobs. So I guess three, just like we have here. That makes sense? So they can select a pending to go into their column column of assign jobs, and then move on from there. But just to show you how to put this up on GitHub, because now that our application is starting to get real code, you're going to want to have as much, you're going to put all your code up on GitHubs when you submit your homework assignment. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick, so bear with me for an extra minute. So I'm going to create a new repository, and we're going to say, we're going to call this guy, what do we call it, Snowman? Project Snowman. Project Snowman. All right. So somebody said there's a new click and drag thing, but I'm not going to do that. Mostly because I don't know how. So, it's going to break the repository in my head. So as soon as you guys test it out, you can let me know. But for right now, that's not happening. Unless you don't want me to give you the code as a starting point. Are you willing to risk that? I feel very confident I can put it up in GitHub the normal way. Where's Project Snowman? So here's my file. So I'm going to do a git init. All right, then I'm going to do a git add star. Okay, then we'll do a git commit -m initial commit, and then I need to grab the remote. All right, so we only have to do that once. So now this local Git repository knows about the one I created up in the cloud. And then finally, we'll do a git push. So this guy should now be up there. And there's our Project Snowman. All right, so I'll put this up with the assignment. So your homework assignment is use this as a, I don't know, as a starting point or a guide for your application. And when you submit yours, submit me a GitHub link along with, have I put in the, I'm going to do a self-evaluation thing on there as well, since our code is getting complex enough where there's a realistic chance that things are not going to be working completely, right? So I'll give you an opportunity to tell me, I spent 9 hours on this, it doesn't work. This is what I did. Please give me some points. All right, that type of thing. So I'll have that template up, and I'll put this assignment up. Okay, questions, comments, concerns, bribes. All right, I will see everybody next Monday. And I think what I'll also do, just while I have the recording still going, because I never actually had you guys do any sort of like paper telling me what your project is, right? I did not. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, that depends on what you want us to do.
No. Just
How I answer that question.
what I was going to ask you to do is, along with this submission, give me like a 1-paragraph description of your project.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You can do that.
Yeah. I was asking if you'd already done that. If you'd already given me like if I had assigned a paper.
Well, yeah, but we didn't want you to then assign a paper for us to do that.
Well, maybe I should assign 2 papers now and other things.
So close.